Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anyway Whatever podcast. I am your host, Mike Fisher, and today's guest is Geoff Peveto of the Decoder Ring Design Concern out of Austin, Texas. Me and Geoff have been friends for a long time, and we've done a lot of cool stuff together over the years. Geoff has everything from a graphic designer, restaurant owner. He ran a nonprofit. And he's involved in charities. He's done a lot. He's covered a lot of bases in his career. And we cover a lot of that stuff. And it's a great episode. Geoff is a wealth of information. And I think everybody's really going to like this one. As always, if you like this podcast, please feel free to share it with your friends and other people who might also like this podcast. We're a DIY operation. And every single recommendation from people goes a long way to helping me keep doing this show. If you listen on iTunes or Google or any other major podcasting network, please give us a 5-star review and subscribe. That stuff is invaluable to getting us more views and listens, which just gives us more chances to make more stuff. You can find us on all the social media at Anyway Whatever Podcast. And we appreciate all the support we get from everybody. This has been much more than I could have ever expected, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Feel free to leave comments too. Please ask questions and see if I can't get you some answers on things if there's stuff you want to know about the guest or what we're talking about. And that goes for every episode, not just this episode. So I won't hold you up anymore. I'll get you to the episode right on the other side of this intro jam. Welcome back, everybody. I'm your host, Mike Fisher, and today's guest is my friend Geoff Peveto from Austin, Texas, originally from Oklahoma, I think, right?
That's correct.
Geoff is a graphic designer. His company is the Decoder Ring Design Concern, and he's a good friend. We've been friends for a long time. I'm excited to have him on. What's up, Geoff?
Just hanging out on a Saturday. I told you before we got on, I didn't get out of bed till 11. Made some cinnamon rolls, made some coffee. Got a beer here for when we get deep into this show.
I love it. Where can people find you on social media so as we go on and people will probably want to go see what it is you do?
My design thing is The Decoder Ring, at The Decoder Ring. The website's at thedecoderring.com, like a crackerjack decoder ring. And if you're interested in seeing my kid do dumb shit, I am Geoff Peveto.
Awesome. That's fantastic. I have not actually gotten a chance to sit down and talk with Geoff for a long time, and I'm overdue. I've been talking to a bunch of the Austin people, and every time I have to say I'm overdue a visit to all of you people out there, and I know that, and so it's really cool for me to be able to sit down and chat with you face to face. Like I've said repeatedly, anybody who listens to the show is going to be familiar with this. Is that it's just been really good for me to sit down and talk to people who I respect and who I consider to be good friends of mine. And, you're no exception to that. There you are typing away during an interview. How about that?
We got a good crew down here still. It's the same dudes, but we're just all 20 years older.
Right. Me and Geoff know each other from the design industry. Geoff was another one of the rock poster designers who was in our little group of friends on gigposters.com, and he's gone on to way bigger and better things than just doing rock posters. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I know one of the things that you guys did with Decoder Ring is you designed the fucking branding for an airline company.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
That was relatively early on too, and it was an interesting company. It's this massive ranch in East Texas, King Ranch, and they decided to make their own intrastate airline that just flew in Texas.
Wow.
I don't think it lasted very long, but it looked good.
It looked great. All that branding was super cool. And I was just like, as a designer, when you're thinking about the things that, that you might want to work on in your life, it's like, An airline might be a fucking pretty cool job to do, you know? I don't think there's a lot of people who get that gig, you know, outside of like massive design firms, you know?
We had a weird balance between being this rock poster thing, which a lot of people just, that's all we were associated with. Like, you're the guys who make the rock posters, and then doing all this massive, legitimate branding.
Yeah. What other stuff have you guys worked on, like in the outside of the gig posters realm that I might want to check out, or people who are listening might want to go take a look at?
Like my old partner Christian, still to this day has been doing everything for Austin Beer Works, and that was, I mean, that's going on probably 10 years, and at the time those cans looked drastically different than a lot of stuff that was being done, and was at the forefront of this like craft beer. And not just the beer was getting, you know, the styles of beer were getting different and more complex and more experimental, and all the cans followed suit. And that's probably the biggest thing. One of the biggest things that we had done at Dakota Ring was that. I mean, you know, we did all this stuff for Frank that I had for a year, almost 10 years.
Yeah, Geoff was a restaurateur for a little while in Austin, and me and Dixon talked about that a little bit, and I'm not sure which order you guys episodes will be on, so I'll just cover it real quick. Is Geoff had a hot dogs and cold beer sit down restaurant, and I was lucky enough to be able to go there on one of my trips to Austin. The food there was amazing, and it was just, the design of the place was really cool. And I thought one of the interesting things when you were setting that up is you went out of your way to make it sure that the place had like competition level coffee set up at the bar. So like there was this crazy huge coffee machine, and he went and he hired this barista who like competes in the international competitions and shit. And I don't drink coffee, so I didn't try it, so I don't know if it was any good. But the restaurant was amazing, and I was sad to hear that it wasn't open anymore.
Yeah, it kind of ran its course. Like, we were early on in that kind of food shift in Austin, where restaurants were getting, you know, more foodie, for lack of a better term. Like, people are starting to pay more attention. People are starting to really go out and hit restaurants, and they weren't satisfied with some stuff that had been basic, I guess, for lack of a better term. Mm-hmm. And rapidly, we were at the forefront of that for like 5 years. And then after that 5-year mark, it blew up, and it blew up everywhere. It wasn't just Austin, but Austin specifically blew up. And the scene down here now is completely saturated. And it was just time to move on to something new.
Right. I totally get that. Like me and my wife, before we moved back out here to the serious suburbs, we were down at Echo Park by Dodger Stadium. And when we moved in, it was all, you know, mom and pop taquerias and, you know, liquor stores and all kinds, like, you know, like weird Latino, like spiritual medicine shops, like, you know, that abuelita would shop at for her cures. And then by the time we left 7 years later, it was like, you know, it was like all craft beer places and like, you know, foodie restaurants. And like, there was almost nothing left of what was, you know, so great about that neighborhood. You know, I think the word I'm looking for is gentrified, but it got gentrified really hard. And every time we go back through, the place we lived in, we're still really good friends with the property owners. It's like a fourplex, and we do actually, they're in the film and TV industry, so we actually work with them still. So we're down there some, and every time we go back, it's like some old building's gone and some new buildings in its place, or some restaurant, you know, that has a bunch of food that I don't like.
They don't have steak and potatoes?
Yeah, no tacos, burritos, and no burgers. There's actually like a total like greasy like burger place called Patra that, you know, it's like the standard you know, Pepsi menu board with the little letters and numbers that, you know, you stick in that, and all the food tastes the same at every single one of those places you ever go to. And it was like the closest place to our house. And it was like, whenever we were like drinking beer or something, we got to go get burgers at Patra. And that's still there. So at least it's got that going for it.
It's nice when some of that stuff hangs on. This is going to be weird to see what does and doesn't. Like, there's I don't know if did you ever go to Threadgill's when you were here? You probably didn't.
I don't think you so. Might.
It's historical. Like, Janis Joplin started playing at Threadgill's in the 60s. And it's all the Armadillo World headquarters poster artists. That's where they hung out. And like the whole place is a museum for that time frame. And it's a time capsule. And it's done. it closed and it's not opening back up unless somebody comes out of the woodwork and saves it, which could happen, but it's like they just announced like we're not reopening even after this stuff is passed for done.
I feel like a mutual friend of ours, Billy Perkins, is like a long-term Austin artist, and he posted something about that. And I remember thinking that was unfortunate, but it seems like one of those places that may end up being able to fall under historic, like a landmark, and that there may be some way for the city to come in and try to help save it. I hope somebody's trying to do that, because that kind of stuff's important. And it, I know it's kind of a disease that's happening everywhere, all over the country. If America as a country has one thing that annoys me the most, it's that we don't have any history, because we just fucking tear it down as soon as it's 30 or 40 years old and put in some new shiny building. And people seem to have lost the desire to keep that stuff around. And it's happening really, really bad in LA right now. And so there's like every week there's something that's like, oh, this place, I mean, not even pandemic notwithstanding, there's like this, Amoeba Records is one of the most famous record stores on planet Earth. And they're like, yes, the people who own this building are going to tear it down and put up, big apartment blocks. So we got to go find a new place. And it's like, it's just there's no way you're ever going to get a building with the same design as Amoeba ever put up again. And so it's just a loss,
Yeah, I think the last time you and I hung out in LA, we went to Amoeba. We went to a Kozik thing and went to Amoeba.
Yeah, probably. That's probably right. Yeah, Amoeba's right next to the very famous Cinerama Dome. That's like, the two big domes that everybody who's ever seen anything Hollywood related has seen. It's like one of those landmarks. And if they ever tear that down, I'm just going to fucking burn this whole city to the ground.
They're the same. Like there's no history here. There's a smidge. If you go back East Coast, you're aware of how much has been just destroyed here. Yeah. And then when you travel overseas, it's even more. I think it's easy to romanticize when you're on vacation, you're traveling through Europe or whatever. Sure. But it's true. Like that stuff is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old, and it's not being mowed over and condos being put up.
Yeah, like when I toured Europe with my last band, we did 2 days in Amsterdam before we took off. We just went to Amsterdam and spent 2 days like hanging out and partying and having fun. And the hotel we stayed in was older than the United States of America. Yeah, and it was like amazing. And the whole downstairs, it's called the Old Nickel. It's like right near the red light district. If you were ever in Amsterdam and you need a good place to stay at the Old Nickel. It's awesome. But the whole lobby was like an old Dutch trade ship, and like the kettle in the fireplace was like, it was like fucking 600 years old or something. It was amazing. That place was cool. If I could move anywhere that wasn't the United States, I would move to Holland in a heartbeat. I love that. Yeah. I love that country.
I love Amsterdam. The only thing that would keep me from going there is that they actually have winter.
Yeah, cold winter. Ask all the American soldiers from World War II who had to go fight the Nazis in Holland. Yeah, that didn't look very nice at all. It can't be worse than like Minnesota, though, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, to get back a little bit to Decoder Ring stuff. I know one of the things that was amazing to me is that one of the bands that we share in common that we both love a lot are the Sonics. And the Sonics were a 60s garage rock band. They were well ahead of their time. And I think most people would agree that they're kind of a proto-punk band, because they were singing about things that other bands in the 60s weren't singing about, witches and fucking, drinking poison and random shit like that. Yeah. And they had a guitar sound. They were way more raw than most of those bands. And so they are, they're our parents' age, or they're like they're guys that are in their 70s, pushing 80s, and they got back together about a decade ago and started touring. And then they put out a new record about 5 years ago, and Jeff's company, the Decoder Ring, did all the packaging for that. And when I found that out, I was equally totally jealous and completely excited for you that you got to do that, because what a gig that is, man.
It was pretty amazing, and I consider them like, if you had this long conversation about who's the first punk rock band, and I tend to, if I get past the standards, the Sex Pistols, the Misfits, the Ramones, and all that, and go further back, I tend to land on, even past the Stooges, I tend to land on, like, it kind of started with the Sonics. And I can imagine being a teenager or, just college age and going to a Sonic show for the first time and having my head blown off by how different they sounded, that just shy of like the Everly Brothers being huge. And this band comes out and does what they do.
Right.
And whenever we got, I think you were probably part of it. There was a tour series of posters for the Sonics that Justin together.
I was not part of that.
We did one show. Our posters the poster I did was kind of drastically different than what everybody else was doing. And because we're designers, we're not illustrators, and we approached the design different than a lot of the people that were on that roster. It was kind of the, not to distill it down too far, but it's kind of like the Hot Rod Skulls group that we always had those big fights about. That was
sure.
People that got called to do Sonics posters.
For the people watching on YouTube, I'm going to go out and find I'll put up an image of that poster that Jeff's talking about. And then for the people who listen to the podcast, you're just going to have to go find it on your own.
But it was, I did a simple, it was white ink on black paper. And my favorite song by them is Cinderella. And this was just a silhouette, like a 1950s illustration style silhouette of a woman's legs with a shoe on it.
Sure.
And it was just a, kind of almost too literal thing of Cinderella. And I put a little bitty tiny clip of that song in the print of the poster and then the date. And that was it. And the tour went off. I don't know if they even came through Austin on that tour, but I didn't see them. And I don't know, a few months, maybe it was a year later, I don't know, Justin called me and said, hey, they told me that your poster was the only one they liked on the whole tour and they want you to do their new album art. And I was like, bullshit. Seriously. I was like, well, fuck yeah. The Sonics, the first record they put out since I think I've been alive, like legitimate studio album. Yeah, fuck yeah, I'll do it. And not knowing who I'm dealing with or anything about it, I was like, yes. Didn't even, is there budget, anything? Just like, yes, it's a fucking Sonics, I'm doing it. And it was not because of the band. It was not an easy record to get done. And if you approach everything like everybody does, but when I sit down with a client, I go, give me a take, doc. Give me
right.
The track listing. I need your credits. I need who's pressing it. I need to find out where I get the template for the sleeve. All those basic things. Yeah, man, this is gonna be great. Guy was an amazing guy to talk and shoot the shit with. Knew so much about punk rock.
Was this somebody who was in the band, or was it a label guy?
It was a guy who was associated somehow.
Oh, okay.
And he was amazing to talk to about punk rock, but to get down to business was a nightmare. And I would send off the thing or a request, not get anything for weeks, and then get hey, where are we on the design? I'm like, I got nothing to design, buddy. Like I need the information so I start to lay this thing out. Weeks go by. Hey man, we gotta go to press. I'm like, you still haven't given me the track listing. What do you want me to do? And it came down. It's one of two clients I've ever said, I don't need this job, so you call it right now. Like, I don't have to do this. I want to do it, but if you can't give me the stuff I need to do it, I don't care. And that changed the progression of it. And then we ended up doing this really I thought it was kind of a badass little simple design that looked like the Sonics from the era, but it didn't just like completely ape what they had done. And if you listen to that record, someone could tell me like this was on a shelf for the last 45 years and you'd believe it. They recorded it on 4-track and it sounds like the fucking Sonics. Like it's great. And Eric Montes worked on that with me because he was part of the Dakota Ring at the time. And he and I went to the show. They played the Continental Club here. And those 75-year-old motherfuckers brought it. Like it was the coolest show I'd seen in a long time.
Yeah, me and Christy went to the LA show of that, and it was like, Barrett's Whitfield was one of the openers, and the 210s were one of the openers, and it was just a great show in general. But the Sonics, man, I couldn't believe it. They absolutely tore the house down, and that record, I feel exactly the same way. The Sonics are very special to me in that my dad was like a Seattle kind of like hoodlum in the 60s and stealing cars and shit and getting into trouble in the 60s in Seattle, and he loved the Sonics. And so I was really lucky that the Sonics were a band that my dad had turned me on to when I was getting into punk rock music, and me and my dad couldn't really discuss music very much at all because I'd moved on to a different thing. Like, he hit me to all the good, like, the Doors and the Stones and all that stuff when I was a kid. And then I got to the point where, like, I started listening to punk rock music, and he was always he did his best to kind of get it. And some of the bands, like, like the Adolescents, he heard that coming out of my room, and he's like, oh God, these guys can actually play and can actually sing songs. And so he kind of got it because he came from that rock and roll place, and he was a pinstriper and a hot rodder. And so he was like, well, you need to check out this band, the Sonics. And I was, and when I heard it, I was like, I could immediately tell that it was really closely related to the stuff that I was listening to at the time. So the Sonics have always been a big deal for me. And when they came out with this record, it blew me away. The way you describe it is perfect. It's like if you told me that this was tracks that were recorded, that were unreleased, that they recorded in the 60s, I would have believed it. And then it's just these, these fucking grandfathers, these grandfathers put out one of the best rock and roll records of the last like 10 years, 20 years. And if anybody listening is not familiar with the Sonics, you should go listen to them right now. And in particular, when you get through the older material, all this stuff's up available on Spotify. I'm always pimping Spotify on this channel because it's how I listen to my music all the time. And so all the Sonic stuff is up there. This record that Geoff worked on is up there, and spend some time. It's not, if you don't like punk rock, don't be afraid of going to listen to it because you don't like punk rock. It's just good rock and roll music, and it is the bedrock for where anything cooler than what gets played on the radio came from, I think.
It is. It's so good. And like you can trace so many bands back to that, whether it's like a direct obvious link or not. Like they've got to be one of the most influential bands and unknown to boot.
Sure. Yeah. They're a direct link to I listen to a lot of garage rock now. I think that's one of the things that just happens to all of us old death metal dudes is that we end up listening to garage rock, Swedish garage rock music, or in particular just garage rock. But one of the, the Mummies are one of my all-time favorite bands. And I go all the way back to the 80s with the Mummies, and the Mummies do a lot of covers of Sonic songs, and they always do them a lot of justice. And it's cool that the Mummies are back. And if shows ever start happening again and the Mummies are anywhere near you to go see, one of the most dangerous shows I've ever been to in my life. I've been to a lot of shows in the last 35 years and played at a lot of shows. And when the Mummies played here in LA, they booked some weird, this is in itself kind of an amazing story in that I played ice hockey at the same ice rink in Burbank, California called the Pickwick Ice Rink for fucking 20 years. And then on the Pickwick grounds is also a wedding spot and a bowling alley. And so for years, every week, go to Pickwick, never went to the back to see the wedding gardens or any of that stuff. And that's where the Mummies booked to play, was this wedding hall behind the ice rink where I've been playing hockey for 20 years. And I was like, it was such a fucking mind blower for me. And like immediately, as soon as the first note of the first song start, a bottle came flying at my face. I ducked and it hit the dude behind me right smacked in the fucking mouth, and he starts bleeding, and the whole fucking place just went. There's people swinging from the chandeliers at this fucking wedding hall. The whole stage got packed with people who were like on both sides, like dancing, and the whole stage was bouncing. It was an insane show. It was so much fun. So if you ever get a chance to see the Mummies in your lifetime, I would suggest you do it.
Right on. That's awesome. I have it's kind of just mixed feelings about not even the bands coming back and touring and playing. Are they going to be any good? Are they going to phone it in?
Right.
And to date, I've seen. I try to catch it just because I feel like I'm doing myself and like the band a disservice if I don't go out and see. Like Stiff Little Fingers came through, a few months before all this, and they were fucking amazing. Like it was the greatest show. But I went and saw years ago. Suicide went on tour. Mm-hmm. I talked all my, like, Clinic was this band that was coming up. Everybody was into Clinic. I was like, holy shit, man, if you like Clinic, you need to go listen to Suicide, because that's where this shit's coming from. And then they booked a show at Emo's. I'm like, we got to go see Suicide. And all my friends like, really? It's $15, because the Emo's used to be $5. I was like, come on, $15 to see Suicide. Like, they're one of the beginning bands of that CBGB scene. Like, come on. And it was fucking horrible. Like, it was the most phoned in bullshit I think I maybe have ever seen from a band. And that's like that first thing, like, oh, the Misfits are playing again. Do I want to go to that? I don't know. And then I typically will go and be pleasantly surprised by how good some of those bands still are. Like, every time I see the Descendants, they fucking blow my mind.
Yeah. I'm trying to, one of the things that I have to be very upfront about to anybody who listens to this podcast or watches this shit on YouTube, when I am in the middle of talking to somebody and I need to call a name up into my brain, even if it's something super simple, my brain completely locks up. So I'm trying to look. Okay, I found what I was looking for. Just speaking to that directly. Me and my wife went to Punk Rock Music and Bowling Festival last summer, this time last year in May. And one of the bands that I was super excited to see that you don't ever get a chance to see is the Undertones, because they're one of my favorite, like, of the first wave of British punk bands. And you know, they have a different singer, and I was like, I don't know, they better fucking be good. And then we got to see them in one of the club shows. You know, it was like a fucking tiny bar in Vegas. And then we got to see them on the big stage, and they absolutely destroyed. They were so good. And another band just like that I never really liked was the Vibrators. This weren't a band that ever was in my sphere, and they were really good too. They were really
Teenage
good.
Chicks is one of the greatest songs ever written.
Sure, yeah, you know,
so good.
It was weird that there was. The only problem I had with the Undertones is there were songs that they didn't play that I just can't believe that they didn't play. They did play that, but like they didn't play. I don't know. You know, they didn't play Chocolate and Girls, which was like, how do you not play Chocolate and Girls? And I don't know if there's some legal reason. You know, sometimes you go see these reunited bands and there's a legal reason that they can't play that song. Like we went to this like old school hip hop show, and it was like 70s. Like Sugar Hill Gang played and Grandmaster Flash and all these. And sometimes there are rappers in the group who don't join on the tour. And so, you know, you're trying to listen to White Lines, and it's like they do like one verse because that's the only guy in the band who, you know, and it was kind of a bummer. But Sir Mix-a-Lot came on, made fun of all the bands who wouldn't do whole songs, and then whole versions of all of his best songs, Posse on Broadway and stuff. We were like, awesome. Yeah.
It's always weird to, like, you know, there's that balance or juxtaposition, like, just play the hits. Like, you want to go see a band and you're not interested in their new album because it's probably not that good. But, you know, like, why do you get why should you be projecting that onto a band that's still making stuff that's, you know, important to them?
Sure.
But then you see a band that, like, we went and saw the Scientists. They never ever played in Austin ever, and they're from the '70s, Australian band, and they didn't play a single thing off their first record, which is a phenomenal record. Not a single song. And they had a 2-night stand. We bought tickets both nights just to go hear them play Girl. Didn't play it. I was like, why the fuck didn't you not play that stuff? But it was still a great show. But, you know, it's just that thing, like, going into anything with expectation and, like, yeah, I want this custom set for me, and that's not what you're going to get, and you shouldn't get that.
Yeah, and
enjoy what you're seeing.
I'm of two minds about that. Like I just said, there may be a reason that they can't, but notwithstanding, when you're in a band, and I've been in some bands, and you have a little bit of an obligation to your audience to give them something that they want that you don't necessarily want to have to give them. And so I kind of feel like that's a dicky move. I mean, I can't speak to what you're talking about because I don't know anything about that band, but I mean, especially if you're like a legacy band, you know, like I do think you owe your fans a little bit of that. Even if you are tired of playing that song, you have to kind of fucking do it. Yeah, I mean, but fuck you. You know what I mean? This is your fucking job. You picked this job, not me. Entertain me. You know what I mean? There's a little bit of that is as any kind of artist, you have an audience and you owe them a little bit because it's not easy to survive as an artist, and the only way you can do it, whether you're a filmmaker or whether you're a visual artist or a musician, I don't give a fuck if you're a chef. Like, you owe your audience something, because they're the ones who keep you doing what you want to do. And when I think when artists get jaded to the point of intentionally not giving their audience back something that they kind of owe them, that can be a little annoying.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that's how you got your audience in the first place, is you made something that they attached to and had a connection to. That doesn't make a lot of sense to take it away.
Right. Like, if I go to see the Stiff Little Fingers and they don't play alternative Ulster, I'm putting on my Karen hair, and I want to talk to the manager. I want to know. Somebody recently described that as a reverse mullet, and I was like, fuck, it is.
It's accurate.
Yeah. So, aside from all of that, I know that, one of the things that helped put you on the map, and I think it was with the guys that you worked with before Dakota Ring, which was Ferg and Cross and those dudes. What was the name of that company?
Factor 27.
Factor 27. I think that Kozik gave you guys some initial, like, big corporate work that he was passing on that helped put you guys into, like, another level above what.
Yeah, I think it came out of that first flat stock. Like, right. The Kozik had guys that came down, like brand managers from Levi's,
right? And
was it Express Jeans? Maybe I think that's what it was. But they both came through flat stock, which was, I mean, that was the most ragtag show that I maybe ever been a part of. But it was
people
amazing.
Who listen to the show have heard me talk about flat stock before. But if you're unfamiliar with it, flat stock was like a rock poster show that started. First one was in San Francisco, and Frank Kozik rented out a hall and got us all tables, and all of us rock poster people who were building a community on gigposters.com. Fuck, we were building an industry. All got together in San Francisco, put up our posters on a table. People came through, bought posters. We all got to meet each other in real life, and it created lasting, lifelong bonds and friendships. Like, that's how me and Geoff became, actual friends. And so, just for people who don't know, and even more than that, and I don't mean to hijack where you were going with this, Geoff, we'll get back to that, but Frank set it up and did the first one, and then was like, somebody needs to take this and start making it a regular thing. And Geoff took a hold of the reins and got the flat stock poster show to be part of South by Southwest. So literally anybody who's been to South by Southwest in the last 15 years, or maybe even a little bit more than that, 20 years, has walked through the flat stock poster show. And it's become like, I stopped doing it when I stopped doing rock posters in the late 2000, like 2006 or so. But it's amazing. And Geoff set up the American Poster Institute, which was a nonprofit, to make sure that there would always be some organization to deal with these big festivals on a legal level, so that you could have them at Bumbershoot, so that you could have them at, what's the Chicago one? Like, Riot Fest or or any of those. And then I believe they're international. You guys started going to Reeperbahn in Hamburg, Germany. And it became, didn't they do one in England?
It was the UK guys did a small version. So we started it, the first one was in San Francisco, 20 people. Right. And then I took it to Austin. And then at that first Austin show, the guys from Bumbershoot came through in Seattle. Jeff Kleinsmith was on the board with me, and they're like, this is an easy one. Connected to Seattle. And then Pitchfork Fest started in Chicago, and Jay Ryan was on the board. That was an easy connection because Jay was physically in the city.
Bubba the Basset Hound is coming through. So he does this like at least twice a day. He's got to come out here and make sure I'm still here. So if you hear anything in the background, it's Bubba. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
So we did Pitchfork in Chicago, and then we took it to Hamburg, Germany, to Reeperbahn Fest, and then to Primavera Fest, Barcelona, which is a fucking amazing festival. 120,000 people at this festival. It's amazing.
Wow.
And then a smaller group now is in Mexico City. The Ahmed who does the Mercadona, I'm saying it right, the Mexico's jet jackets. He set it up in Mexico City, and so it's international.
That's amazing.
I would never have thought that getting shit faced with you guys in San Francisco, the first one. There would never be another show beyond that, but it did. It happened, and it's just because we were wanting to have our own thing. Because you maybe even said it was like, I can't get any fucking real galleries to give me a legitimate show, and that's when Cozy was like, do your own show, and that's what it was, how it happened.
Right. Yeah. We did our own thing, and I hate to harp on things, but this is a theme that has been coming up in the you're like guest probably 10 or 11 that I've interviewed for the podcast so far, and I've been getting people from all the spectrum of the creative world, from authors to musicians to artists to TV and film people, and it always keeps coming back to the DIY. Do it yourself. You don't need permission from anybody to do the things that you want to do. If you have an idea, and it goes all the way back, and I hate to give American hardcore punk too much credit for it, but it really came from that. It was like kids didn't want to sit around and wait for some grown-up to put out their records or to rent a hall and have a show. So we just started doing it ourselves. And that spirit in American culture now, where you have people like, I'm just going to fucking go open a restaurant. I'm going to go open a food truck. I'm going to go, whatever it is that people want to do, comes really, it became like a real thing in the 1980s. And for me, it's just like, that is one of the most special things about any person that I can find, is somebody who's just decided they're going to do whatever it is they're going to do, and they just start doing it. And so that really, the rock poster world came from that one website, and we just decided this is what we were going to do, and we all just started doing it. And where it's gone in the last 20 years is it's mind blowing to me that they're in Spain, and that's just crazy. And you have a big part in that. I mean, you started the API so that it would always be able to happen, and you got to take some credit for that, dude. I'm not going to let you be humble about that.
No, I appreciate that. Like, it is, I've always kind of tried to, I'm a reluctant leader. And it's that DIY thing. It's like, well, fuck, no one else is going to do it. Let's just go do it. I'll go do it. I'll do it. I can organize things. I'll do it. And then we do it. And then things run its course, and I move on to the next thing. I've been operating like that since I was a teenager. A lot
of us have. As I'm finding out, talking to people, a lot of us have been doing it that way.
I started a student council at my school so we could have a fucking salad bar in the cafeteria. Like, stupid shit like that. It's like, hey, why don't we have a salad bar? Well, there's nobody pushing it. Well, all right, now we're going to get a salad bar. And we got one. I've been doing that since. Like, I want to do a magazine. I did a magazine in the late 90s, and it was global distribution.
What magazine was that?
Peter Belly. I only did 2 issues because it was fucking expensive. It was 80 pages, had full color cover, had a CD compilation. I got advertisement from Touch and Go and Merge and Sub Pop, and had their bands on the CD. It was fun. And that's how I started. That was my leap into coming back. So I did all the design stuff when I was in college. I was a ceramics major, but I did all the design stuff with bands, with my friends, like everybody, like going to Kinko's, making flyers and making CD cases, because no one was pressing vinyl then, for your friends' shitty bands. And then moved to Austin, got out of it, and did this magazine and started making connections to bands that I'm like, just like you and I have been 20-year friendships. That's how I met the guys in Hold Steady and Modest Mouse, and everybody, doing interviews and putting them on my compilations. And when I started doing posters again, those connections immediately started working with bands that probably should have been working with as a like, I'm just now learning how to screen print. The first poster I designed and screen printed myself was for fucking Sonic Youth. That's silly that I had that opportunity.
Well, it plays to credibility, right? Like, you gave yourself credibility with these people by having done this magazine, that they could see, oh, this guy isn't a fucking dipshit. He's actually created something. And then when you come back around to them, they're like, oh, this is a guy who gets things done. Fucking go for it,
Yeah. And it's all just kind of I don't know, snowballed in the right word, but like those connections just keep connecting and connecting and connecting. And now you've got this network, global network of friends that are all in the creative world, and it's pretty special.
It really is. Like our group of friends has expanded so far, and so many of us have gone on to do like insane things. Like Jeff Kleinsmith is the fucking art director for Sub Pop Records. You know, Dusty Summers, I don't know if he's still at Sub Pop, but he's that's huge. Fucking Barksdale is a designer at Nike. Like the amount of fucking precedence that some of the people from our little corner of the world have managed to achieve it's like, fucking forget it. You know, I designed t-shirts for Paul McCartney, man. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, how do you find yourself, if you're me and you spend most of your life listening to hardcore punk and death metal, how do you find yourself in the seat talking about designing t-shirts for a special night gig at the MGM for Paul McCartney? Get out of here with that. You know, like, I just couldn't have ever imagined any of us would get there. I mean, it's just crazy.
Designed a Lady Gaga poster with Lauren for Decoder Ring. Lady Gaga, how the fuck did that ever happen?
Right.
I'm crazy.
My wife's in the same position. You know, she's hair and makeup, and she worked on a Lady Gaga video. She found herself. You know, she some of the places that she's gone. I can't brag about the job that she landed like 3 weeks before the pandemic lockdown, but it's like she got on a movie by one of the greatest working directors of the last 25 years. And
let's talk about movies.
we're gonna do a movie review after me and Jeff are done here. We're gonna do a separate movie review that I'll post at a different time. But yeah, I think it's just amazing how far we've all come just as artists and as people. Like, I mean, I had all my kids young and they're all grown adults now. And you have a youngin', right?
Faye will be 3 next month.
Wow. That's awesome. Congratulations.
I never wanted children ever.
Right.
And something, you get hit a certain, as you mature and everything changes in your life, you're like, maybe I should have had a kid. And it's like, met someone that was really great, and we have an amazing kid. And I'll never do anything as cool as having this little daughter.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that you can't know. You can't know that that's how you'll feel about it until it happens. And then you're like, oh shit, this is not only is it the coolest thing I'll ever do, it's the most important job I'll ever have, is making sure that I do the right thing here. And that was always like my thing with my kids, is that, given a different path in life, I may have not had kids because I would have probably spent all of my time and attention on creating stuff. But once I did, that I just decided that it's time to quit being in bands and stuff like that, and it's time to focus.
Your dad was a pinstriper, and then now Jody's doing it. That's got to be a pretty great feeling to have like that lineage,
right?
Of that genre of art that you guys have carried through for 3 generations now.
Yeah, my son Jordan. If you follow. If you're one of my Facebook friends, my son Jordan started this business where he does custom etched mirrors. They have funny sayings and like cool like Rat Fink style art on them. And then sometimes they're just like the thing that's great about him is that he comes up with these really funny little sayings to put along with the images, and he's just striking out. And he's the first one of my children who's decided to go in an art direction. With his career. My oldest son's a tech guy and my daughter's a nurse. So it is really fun. And, we get to work on it together a little bit because I can handle things on the technical side that he doesn't have access to. Like I have a vinyl plotter that we can make stencils with for him to do his work. And it started really taking off. He's starting to like etch lowrider windows and stuff like that. And right before, of course, the, the pandemic lockdown. So hopefully everything opens back up and he can get back to doing that. He's still getting orders and he's able to film online, but the car stuff is kind of taken aside. But
I have no idea what Faye's going to do. Like my grandfather was a sign painter.
I remember hearing that.
I think that there's definitely influence from him. Got an amazing scrapbook he had that he probably started putting together in the late 20s, early 30s. And of his work, and it's amazing. All like I think that he did it all without any of the tools that we have as well.
Right.
And I don't know. I have no idea what Faye's going to do. Like, she loves to paint and draw. She loves to help me cook. She loves music. She'll go and I'm going to pick out the record, and she goes and flips through the piles of records and yanks the record out. It's like, we're going to listen to this one. And I don't even think she shouldn't know what she's pulling out unless she sees Prince or her Coco soundtrack. She doesn't know what the rest of the stuff is she's pulling out. She just yanks it out. She pulled Teen Anger out the other day, this band from Canada, like kind of proto-punk thing from Canada. And I put it on, and she's like, I like it. You know, like I got a new Mets record a year ago and put it on, and as soon as the first chord hit, her and the dog literally jumped off the ground. The dog ran out of the room, and she looked at me like, what the fuck is this? And I like it. You know, it's great that she's into these things. I mean, it makes sense. I'm exposing her to all the stuff that I do at the house, which is listen to music, cook, watch film, and paint and draw. So
sure,
who knows? She's probably going to be a lawyer.
Yeah, right. Like, I was always worried that my kids were going to be like, you know, accountants or something fucking boring like that. No offense to accountants. That's a job that needs to get done. But when you're my kid,
keep talking.
When you're my kid, if you end up being an accountant, it's clearly a rebellion act. Is it beer 30 on your end?
Yeah. It's almost 3:00.
I have to do another interview after this, so I can't start drinking till later. But to kind of get back to the family thing a little bit, after my second podcast recording session later today, we on Saturdays during the lockdown, we've been doing family Zoom with my sister and her kids and my kids. And it's been really cool to like hang out and shoot the shit with everybody for a couple hours on a Saturday night after I'm done doing this. Cause I've been going hard at this podcast thing for the last like 3 weeks between learning how to do it on a technical side and actually recording episodes. I've been in college on this shit, man.
I've done the Zooms with friends, meetings all day long with stuff I'm doing at my work right now. And then my sister lives in LA, and she's got, a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old. And when Faye's over, we'll Zoom in with them and catch up with the cousins. Judah is the youngest, and he's getting into emo.
All right. Real emo or that shitty 2000s screamo?
My Chemical Romance and 21 Pilots and stuff that I've actually never listened to because I don't think I need to. Maybe I'm just being a fucking grandpa, but I don't think I need to listen to it. So I made him it was like 6-7 hour playlist that started out with Rites of Spring and ran through everything until it became not emo.
Right. Jag Nasty and all the actual emo bands like, Promise Ring and Jess from Brazil and Radio Wendy and all those original
Moss Icon.
Yeah. Because my middle son Jordan, who we were talking about earlier, in the 2000s, he like got into that, and I was like, that's not emo. Like you could call it that if you want, and it to this very day, like my last band that I was in was like all like death metal and grindcore guys, and they had no idea what real emo was, and I was like, no, like At the Drive-In, and they're like, what? And I'm like, no, At the Drive-In is an emo band. They're like, no, like Under Oath is an emo band. I was like, no, that's not, like, you could call it that, but that's not what it is. Go listen to At the Drive-In and go listen to Jess from Brazil and go, like cold water music, like, or hot water music. Like that's emo music, like
Knapsack, Sunday Real Estate.
Yeah.
That kind of
Seaweed,
stuff.
Like all those bands.
Jazz.
Right.
It's like so much better than that crap that and I was looking on to see if I had missed something that I know all those bands. I listen to most of them, but I went and looked up like what other people are putting on playlists. Go on Spotify and like emo playlists, and it's all fucking garbage from like 2000 forward.
It's like the Hot Topic bands.
They're all so wrong. Like, this isn't even close. This is just garbage.
Right, and I get that, and people are the comment section on this is gonna explode from all those kids who are like 35 right now who are gonna be like, no, those bands are fucking awesome, and it was never necessarily my thing, and I always tried to not be an old man. Like I used to. Trust me, I used to definitely be that person when I was like, I'm the contrarian and I just don't like it. And one of the things that I have that has happened to me since we have last hung out is that I became a full-time freelance graphic designer and illustrator, and I didn't have to go to a job that I didn't like. And my life changed between the person I was between 2000 and 2009, and then the person I've become in the 10 years since. I barely resemble the dude that I was, when I was like having to, when I had a mortgage and like 3 dogs and 2 car payments and 3 kids and, all of the pressure that goes along with being a middle-aged dude in America. And I was a miserable person, and I only wanted to listen to the angry death metal and black metal music. And now that I'm not that dude anymore, like, I try my best to be like, you know what, maybe it's just not for me, and that's okay. And other people really, their people grew up on that music, just like the music that we grew up on, and it's special to them in ways that I can't understand. And so I try to shy away from, and you're fully welcome to say anything about it that you want, but I try to shy away from being like, that's just shit. It's just not for me. And that's okay. That's okay too. But, some of it actually is shit. But some of the stuff that I listen to, I barely listen to black metal anymore because I think most of it is, with a little bit of perspective, is shit. But I still listen to a lot of death metal. Don't let anybody fool you otherwise. But black metal isn't on the menu very much anymore. Just kind of like, Dark Throne is like, it's like grunge rock for me. Like there was a big wave of grunge, and there were a shitload of bands that people called grunge rock, but there were really like 3 grunge rock bands for me. There was Mudhoney, there was Tad, and there was fucking the early Nirvana, and that was grunge rock. And Pearl Jam is not a grunge rock band to me. Bush is not a grunge rock band to me. A lot of those bands that became super famous. And so black metal's like that for me. Like I've got it down to about 3 bands that matter, and that's about all you need as far as I'm concerned. Dark Throne, Gorgoroth, and I mean,
I still like Mayhem. Like the first couple are pretty great.
The Mayhem's one of those bands that, because they started what was essentially what black metal is to this very day, they will always get a lot of respect for me. The first couple records, I think, were just a little too lo-fi for me to be able to enjoy as music. I can appreciate them for what they did for music in general, not just heavy metal music or extreme music, just music in general. It created a genre of music, and any band or record that can create their own genre of music, you get my respect, even if I don't like that music. And it's funny, total digression. Little Richard died today, and he pretty much created rock and roll. No matter what you think about Little Richard, he created a genre of music that, and that's impressive no matter who you are. It's like I look at Napalm Death in the same way, although I actually really love Napalm Death. They kind of created grindcore, and so no matter what they ever do with themselves, they can always put that feather in their cap. But so I don't know. Life's weird, and you never know where you're going. I think there's one of my favorite quotes from anybody ever is Muhammad Ali's a hero to me, and he was a hero to my father as well. His name was as high in our household as you could get as far as respect was concerned. And my favorite quote from him is that any man who sees the world at 50 the same as he did when he was 20 has wasted 30 years of his life. And I think that's important for people to remember. Like, yeah, man, the fucking world changes, and if you don't change with it, you're just kind of a dick as far as I'm concerned.
It's true. If you're not learning constantly, like what's the point?
Right. What is the point indeed? Sir, what have you been working on? Any cool new projects? I know you're still busy, even though the world is locked down. Is there anything you can talk about that you've been working on that you're excited about?
Yeah, for sure. I oddly, about 2 weeks before like the Austin official shelter in place, stay home order came down, I took a job at Revival Cycles as chief creative officer. And Revival Cycles has been around about 10 years, started by an old friend of mine named Alan Stolberg. And he'd been talking to me for a couple of years, like, hey, come over, and we can do some cool stuff together. And I kind of always thought he was full of shit because, we're buddies. We've got that relationship that, all of us that we talk shit on each other all the time, like lovingly. And I didn't think he was serious, but he was serious. And he was like, no, come over. Like, we got some stuff to do. And from the time that he opened this thing, which was over 10 years ago, he started talking about, I want to do a motorcycle concept, and I love coffee. I want to have a motorcycle coffee concept. I'm like, all right. And he fucking did it. And I was like, oh, wow, you actually did it. And not keeping up completely with what he was doing. Not only is he doing these amazing high-end custom motorcycle builds on a regular basis, they have an in-house leather workshop that makes beautiful bags and custom leather seats and all these accompaniments for the motorcycles. And then he created this hand-built show, which is a big-ass event that everybody that makes these custom-build bikes comes to Austin and showcases over a 3-day weekend.
That's a smart business move.
These big companies, and now I'm in charge of the brand.
Wow.
And moving the brand forward and doing new things with the brand. And so I got a lot of stuff cooking right now. One of the coolest things that we're doing, it's one of the easiest things we're doing, is just starting up a real simple artist series shirt program, just to do a limited edition shirts of people that we really like their work. And I don't know if you know Denton Watts.
Do not.
Denton Watts is going to do the first one. It's going to be a monthly thing. Heavy Slime is Eric Kinney. He's out in Pennsylvania.
Uh-huh.
His stuff is fucking mind-blowing good. Thomas Hooper's going to do one of them. Ryan Dugan, who I think you do know, from Chicago. He came in to Flatstock. He's running the pitch for Flatstock now. His stuff's brilliant. So like we're doing that. It's going to be fun. And
yeah, you have a friend named Mike Fisher who does t-shirt designs for a living. So
is he good?
I don't think so, but he would certainly probably like to hear about being part of a t-shirt series.
He gets stuff from Paul McCartney.
Yeah, he did do that.
But that's the kind of fun thing. And there's much, much larger overarching brand stuff I'm working on right now. And I'm fortunate, and I've got a team. I work with Chris Bilheimer, who people probably don't necessarily know Chris Bilheimer's name, but if you own an REM or a Green Day record put out in the last 20 years, he did it.
Oh, okay.
Like literally in-house design for those two bands and a lot of bands. I think his website, if it's still up, I don't know if he even ever did anything with it, but his website was literally one page that you went to chrisbilheimer.com, and he's like, this is what I figure this is the easiest way to show my portfolio. And it's just pictures of David Letterman holding up records that he designed.
Oh, fuck.
And it's a big rip. And he's not a braggy guy. He's the most humble, quiet, behind-the-scenes guy in the world. He's an amazing designer. And he's been doing he's kind of been the default in-house design for Revival for about 5 years now. So I've got him as my design lead, and I got another guy, Eric Montes, who I've been working with forever. I'm bringing him in to help out with some stuff. So
shout out to Montes. That dude is super fucking rad, dude. Anytime I've ever been to Austin, he's a sleeper, man. You don't see that dude coming, and then before you know it, you're having fun. You didn't know you were in for.
Yeah, I love that. He was my very first intern at Factor 27.
Wow.
Probably, I mean, that's like 17, 18 years ago at this point, I think. And he showed up with a mohawk, and I was, being a dick, being a wise ass. I'm like, you have to get a haircut. That ain't gonna fly. And he was so quiet and maybe not shy, but he was so quiet back then that he might have taken me seriously, and I was just being an asshole. And our internship was, semi a joke. He was doing a print class at the university, and he had to have an internship to finish up his class. And our internship was just to teach him how to screen print in my garage on homemade table, homemade everything. Teach him how to screen print. And the final assignment was you have to go out and get a legitimate commission poster from a band, design it, print it, post it around town. That was the final assignment. And he did it. And that poster was such a total piece of shit. I swear I saved one, and I've got a room right next to me.
If you can find it, please do, because I would like to put it. I'd like to put it up for the video.
It's so bad, and he's such a phenomenal designer. Like from that point many years ago to the simple black and red on white poster to where he is now is like, holy shit, man! He's one of the best out there.
I seem to recall that he had a hand in that Sonics record we were talking about early.
Yeah. We worked on that together. We've worked on a lot of stuff together. Like he and Lauren Dickens who is also just one of the best people in the world. We've collaborated on so much stuff as Dakota Ring, and we always joke like we'll have a project and we'll go out and have some beers, and like 3 beers in, we've locked the idea, and one of us goes off and works on it. Like I just posted something on my Instagram, I don't know, maybe a week or so ago. I think it was 5 years ago. There was a koozie show, and everybody made custom koozies, and they were auctioned for sale, $20 a piece, and it went to an animal charity.
Sure.
And we went and started drinking and rolled through all these stupid ideas and went, what if we make a koozie that fits a keg? and what if that koozie says free beer, and we take that to the party with a full keg and everybody gets free beer? Dude. And we fucking made it. Lauren did the layout. I think I screen printed on foam material, like a legitimate
like
full-size
neoprene
keg cozy. Yeah, on neoprene, and screen printed it and sewed it up together, and like Austin Beer Works donated a keg because they're righteous dudes, and we showed up at the party, the opening for the gallery, and cap keg.
That's one of the better stories heard in a minute. Like, what a good idea and what a cool thing. Like, that's one of the things that I appreciate you on a professional level is you come up with an idea and you see it through the end, and whatever it ends up being, it's always amazing. And the thing that comes to mind is a Willie Nelson poster that you did. It's one of the most famous gig posters ever made, and it's for Willie Nelson, and Geoff actually printed it on metal and went out and like shot guns at each of the posters, right? Did you actually shoot guns at them, or? It's
funny, like that poster was.
I'm gonna put a picture of it up while we talk about it because people got to see it. It's a fucking piece. It is a piece of art.
Oh, buddy, thanks. It was a poster was heavily inspired by Art Chantry. Mm-hmm. He did a Team Generate poster that was a little square of steel with a Japanese zero on it, and he shot holes in his. And that Art Chantry is like, Jeff Kleinsmith is my number one influence in my life in design. That guy's he's a genius to me. And Chantry's next, right below him.
Sure.
And Jeff did one. They got this steel together. Jeff made a 9 Inch Nails poster where they screen printed and welded a nail across the print.
Sure. I remember that one.
And then the one where he shot it up. And that poster always stuck with me. And it sounds fucking hokey as shit. I had a dream one night of making a Willie Nelson poster just exactly like I made it. I woke up and went, I got to fucking do this. And I waited a few years before I got a chance to do this Willie gig. And I almost used it on Hank the Third. I was just like, this is such a cool idea. Like, I got to do it. And I'm glad that I didn't, not that like I would have wasted it on Hank the Third, but it was so much more appropriate for Willie Nelson.
Sure.
And I did this poster, and this guy, Todd Sanders, who has a company called Roadhouse Relics, I went to him and said, hey, I'm going to clean, these were printed on brand new clean pieces of enameled aluminum or steel. And I'm like, I need to figure out how I can make this age between now and the show, which is like 2 months away.
Right.
And he goes, we'll work on it. We'll figure it out. And we ultimately ended up hitting it with a ball peen hammer to make the dent and drilling a hole, because what we talked about was, he goes, well, if we shoot it, if you're doing this in like, if we really overthought this, but if you're driving down a road and you're putting holes in a sign with a real gun, it's blowing the back of the sign out. And he's like, you won't be able to hang it on the wall right, because it's going to have all the shrapnel out the back. And I was like, oh, shit, you're right. And so we whacked them with ball peen hammers, drilled a hole in it, and all that rust that's on there, that's all paint. It's all paint. And every one of them is completely different. And the night of that show, the ones the club had for their collection or whatever, they'd already hung it up at Stubbs. And I'm sitting in the booth where it's up above my head, and these two guys will come by, and this girl goes, hey, check that out. This poster is the same date as tonight's show. And the guy's like, yeah, it's because it's tonight. She's like, there's no way. Look how old that thing is. I quietly just went, yeah, it worked.
Right. It's a really, really cool poster. Like I said, I'll put it up. It looks like an old Texas highway sign. It's fucking really cool. And that's one of the things that, I got from being friends with, I am an illustrator by trade, and any graphic design knowledge I have, I learned by watching people like you and Art and Jeff Kleinsmith and, you know, the aesthetic apparatus dudes. Because I don't really know much about graphic design, and I was oftentimes very complainy online about the designery posters, but I was paying attention, and I was learning how to do that stuff, and it, you know, it's I kind of went to school on all of you guys in the message boards there, even if you guys didn't know it.
But that was kind of the funny, and it was, for the most part, those were always pretty good spirited, like
absolutely
good natured jabs.
They came out of respect from my side, I can tell you that. And
there's always and that Willie Nelson thing. Some of the posters I did around that just led me down a path to like, what can I do? What can I make that is a poster but is not a traditional poster?
Sure.
And I did a bunch of shit like that. Like I made that Flaming Lips thing that was a plastic bagged kite and a kit. You could have actually taken it out, folded it up, made a kite, and flown it. And we did a December's poster, did a bunch of weird shit for the December's, did one that was literally a book, like bought a grip of those Reader's Digest. Here, I'll show it to you.
I think I remember this one.
Yeah, this one started a massive argument online. Like, this is not a fucking poster, but it was this. You remember these books?
I do remember that.
Reader's Digest condensed books. That spine, like everybody that's our age knows that fucking spine. Yeah, these beautiful books. We bought a bunch of them and replicated the cover. This is all the show information here. And this is also the show information here. And then there's, inside here is a story about what we decided to do it for and some more shit on the back. And we literally took these around town to bookstores and put them in and like swapped out the books in the display rack around all the different random bookstores in town and like set them up. And if someone grabbed this off the shelf, like this is not a big addition.
Oh, right. Dude, that is absolutely amazing. And one of the things that I really hope for this show in its lifetime, because one of the things about this is you put this shit up online and it's fucking there forever. So it's going to have a lifetime for as long as there is a lifetime to have. And what I hope is that I get listeners young enough that are coming up, designers, creative people who are coming up who listen to this stuff, and that they see something like that and it gives them an idea of how to do something in a different way. Man, I think that if that's something I can put out into the world by having somebody like you on talking about the Willie Nelson poster, where you're thinking so far outside of the box that it leads you to something like this book thing, that would be fantastic for me. I would feel pretty good about doing this. That would be awesome. Where it went. And as a second side note, this is a complete digression, and it is that you're gonna laugh at this. Last summer, a shipping container came into the San Pedro Harbor, and it had mosquitoes in it from Southeast Asia, and they're not mosquitoes that are native to California, and they infested Southern California, and so they have been destroying people in Los Angeles with mosquito bites for the last year, and they're just starting to come back again. And there's one, like last year, I swear to God, I'd be out here working. I bought mosquito traps, all this shit, and I couldn't stop them. And every day I'd go into the house at the end of my workday, and I'd have at least 15 bites on me.
Good Lord.
And right now there's one. It's like totally hammering me right now. So if you're watching this online and you see me freaking out, it's because I'm being destroyed by the smallest, most annoying fucking mosquito species that's ever existed. So don't think that's weird. And when you're watching this 15 years from now on YouTube or whatever it is. Anyway, back to what we were saying. I wanted to touch really quick. I wanted to touch really quick on a project that you brought me into that was really awesome, is the 50/50 program, where Jeff was working with the foundation that would have artists custom paint or design skateboards And then they would auction those off, and they would use the proceeds to build skate parks in towns that didn't have the means to have funding for a skate park. And I got to do that 2 years in a row. And they built a skate park for kids in Tyler, Texas, and anything skateboard related is near and dear to my heart. And it being able to help use my dumb art to help kids get a skateboard park in a small town in Texas was really cool to me. And I don't know if we've talked since we did that in a face-to-face where I could actually say thank you to you on a personal level for involving me in that.
No, thanks for doing that. That was Chris Bilheimer. It was Brent Humphreys is the guy that started Project Loop. He's an amazing photographer, lives in Taylor, which is about 45 minutes outside of Austin, and started to see these kids that were creative in whatever capacity they were creative, but no one in that small town was really telling them, you know what, you can make a path with a creative endeavor in life. You don't have to go and stay and, do whatever trade that is expected from that town. And I grew up in a town that had 125 people, and you were mostly encouraged to go to Votech, learn trade, and then go work at Ditch Witch and build tractors, which has to happen. That's great. But if you're not interested in doing that, no one's giving you another outlet. Right. And Brent recognized that and started Project Loop and started doing summer. It's basically summer camp, but there's no camp. It's like the kids in Taylor come to Project Loop and he teaches them something. He took them around and taught them how to roast coffee. And then he taught them how to design the bags that the coffee went in. And then he taught them to go to Whole Foods and pitch their coffee and have Whole Foods carry their coffee. And they did that.
That's amazing.
So they these things. And they all realized like the thing they had in common was like BMX, skating, like what kids do.
Sure.
And Brent saw this need. He's like, these kids want to help build this in our town. And it was a fight. It was a 7-year fight with the city council of Taylor, Texas, and all this just closed-minded approach.
Devil worshippers on skateboards.
Like beat up grandma and steal her purse. Like that's the association. And it was like, that's not what it is. Like these kids are good kids and they need the encouragement. And some of them don't have great families. This is the outlet for them to come and have.
That's fucking
support.
America.
And Brent spearheaded this, and he had the idea to do the skate park, and he had the idea to do this custom board thing. And one night, Chris Bilheimer and I were hanging out, and he's like, hey, Brent's doing this thing, and I'm helping him a little bit. Would you want to be involved? And I was like, yeah, sure. What do you need? He's like, we're like looking for like 25 artists, and we're going to do some decks and auction them. And I was like, okay, cool. I can invite some people. And I ended up inviting like 100, 150. And everybody said, yeah. That's back to that earlier conversation, like this network that we've created over these years of all these friends, because most of the people I've encountered in this world are genuine people. They're not like fake phonies, ladder climbing people. Like they're genuine people. Right. And so that's why you have these long-term relationships. And when you call and say, hey, would you be interested in doing this? Most often than not, they're like, that sounds awesome. Let's do it. And we got like insane, amazing talent signed up to do this thing. And ultimately we ended up raising enough money and getting the attention of Tony Hawk Foundation, who gave us a grant.
Wow.
The state of Texas gave us grants, and we built this fucking skate park, and it's open now. Like it's finally open. The signage just went in a week or two ago amidst all this shutdown, and we've yet to be able to do a legitimate grand opening.
Right.
Because the original date of the grand opening got pushed, and then it got pushed into where we are.
Yeah.
But the kids are out there skating it, and then it's people drive from across the state to come skate this thing on a regular basis.
That's amazing.
It's really, really cool. Thanks for bringing that up, because it's like one of those things, like I got signed up to do it because I thought it was the right thing to do, because I didn't have that kind of guidance when I was a little kid. I was the weird kid that had Vans and a fucking, a rat tail in high school, and everybody else was literally wearing shit kickers and listening to George Strait, and I'm listening to fucking Motley Crue and the Sex Pistols and the Cult of Jane's Addiction. And
right.
There was 3 of us, and then everybody else was the other group. And so I get that I understand what those kids were up against. Yeah. And I thought it was awesome. Brent recognized it, and now they've done it. And now it's jump-started the economy in that little town. Like the town square is evolving around the skate park.
That's
amazing. He knew that was going to happen. He projected, like, this is going to revive this little kind of shriveled up Texas town. It is. And now everybody's like, oh wow, this is really cool. And,
We should have done this 7 years ago.
it was a legitimate fight. Like it went back and forth, back and forth. There was moments where like, shit, all this money we raised, what are we going to do with it? It's not going into the park. Like it's not happening, but it happened.
Yeah, I mean, as a person who's been on a skateboard for the last 40 years, trust me, I know all about fighting people over the fact that you just want to ride your fucking skateboard, which is stupid. One of the things that foundation did, that project did, was if you were involved and you were going to be doing one of the deck designs, they had one of the kids from town who was going to use the skate park to send you a personal letter like, hey, Mike, I just wanted you to know that I thank you so much for, and so, I put that letter with the picture of the kid on my refrigerator, and it fucking stayed there for years because I was just so, fucking honored just to somebody would acknowledge that I was involved with that on that level. It's the entire thing from beginning to end was extremely rewarding. I wouldn't have been able to do it if it wasn't for you. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Those kids are amazing kids. And now they're literally graduating high school, going on to college. And I remember they put on suits. One of them was probably maybe 12 years old and put on a 3-piece suit, went and stood in front of the city council as poised as anybody could ever be and told them why this had to happen. And it was the most amazing thing. Like that kid's going to lead something at some point.
That's awesome.
It was like not touching. It was touching, but it was also inspiring. Like, all right, there's a generation's not lost.
Right. Right. That goes back a little bit to the, that we were talking about earlier about me not trying to put my old man shit on other people, is that, you see a lot online where people just shit on millennials because they have some idea of what they are. And, my kids are millennials. And when people talk shit about millennials, I get fucking personally annoyed by that. So, there's the world is just the world. And to try to, say because someone's doing something differently than how I did it or how I would do it, man, that's no way to live your life. And when I see people do it, it frustrates me so much because our generation is supposed to be better than that. We're supposed to have learned something. And when I see people our age doing that, it fucking pisses me off. And especially the generation before us with the hippies. When I see hippies doing really unhippie like shit, like putting that judgment on people, oh man, that really fucking fries my shit. The last thing I kind of want to touch on a little bit, and this is just like a personal personal thing, is over the last 15 years, people who listen are probably familiar with me talking about it. I have in my spare time as a hobby, I've tried to learn and master how to do Texas and Carolina style barbecue. And do you know the dude from Franklin's personally?
Yeah.
Okay, you need to talk to him and get him to be a guest on my show so that I can learn some things about, like me and Christy. Right now there's a series that you can order episodes for called Masterclass. For anybody listening, and they cover how to learn how to do almost anything. You want to learn how to write a script? They'll tell you how to write a script. You want to know how to do makeup for Hollywood productions? Anything it could possibly be. And he has a series on how to do brisket and ribs and pork. And when Christy was like, because of the pandemic lockdown, they're having this crazy special where you get 2 for 1 and it's half price. It's $80 it's $180 and you can get 2 people in on it. So you could go in with a friend, $90 each. And I was, as soon as I saw that Franklin guy had a thing on how to do brisket, I was like, fuck yeah, let's do it. Cause I want to learn how to do it from he's got, on a national level, he's got to be as close to as good as anybody. He's got to be the guy.
No, and it's funny because it's the best barbecue I've ever had. I think there's other barbecue that is on par without a doubt, especially in Austin. The barbecue scene here, since he started, has also blown up in a good way, where it's not just people trying to do what he's doing and just doing really bad versions of it. There's Nickel Barbecue, there's La Barbecue. Style Switch does great stuff. Interstellar Barbecue does great stuff. One that just closed down because it was in this historic building that condos were going up next to, and he was like, I'm not going to fucking struggle through this condo build, and he closed. Right. Friedman's was an amazing barbecue. But if you go to, we used to have our spots. Like we go to Smitty's, where I took you when you were down last time.
Yeah.
Go to Smitty's.
That place was
Smitty's
insane.
Always has best. Kreitz's tends to have a slightly better brisket than Smitty's. You go to City Market down in the next town in Luling, and their ribs are lights out. But collectively, they don't do all of it. Like the chicken, the turkey, the ribs, the sausage, all of it is the best you'll ever have. Anytime you go to Franklin, 100% of everything they put out is the best you'll ever have.
I understand it's like nearly impossible to actually get in there on at any given time. It's like the line starts and you're never going to get in it.
The strangest thing is there was this little window when everything shut down, and then restaurants started figuring out their curbside service. Mm. And for a little window before everybody got hip to it, you could go online at 10:30 in the morning and place an order, and then go your slot, like come get your shit at noon, and you're in line for 10 minutes, and you're going home with the best barbecue you can get. It was awesome. And I think everybody got hip to it now because you go online at 10:30 and
shit's
sold
out. Yeah,
but I've gotten the circle of friends that do the hot luck and all that, like James Moody and Audie and those guys. They're all very close friends with Aaron. So I've got this circle, and the guys in Morning Breath.
I'm familiar with them.
You absolutely know their work.
Yeah.
Jason Noto and Doug, they
okay.
They're in New York. They were in San Francisco and they're in New York now. They came down and did one of those nice like multicolored prints with me, and I was able to call Stacy, Aaron's wife, and call in a favor and go, like, I got these guys from New York and we're doing this print and we can't really leave the studio, but they've got to try Franklin's. And I go and sneak in the back door and get a sack and go home with it. They're super nice folks. He's a huge music geek. Like, he started in bands. Like, if you read his story, do you have his book?
I do not have his book, but I can tell you, anytime I've ever seen that dude, like whether it was on Masterclass or on YouTube or anything, he comes across as just a genuinely nice person. You're like, super good. You feel like you're hanging out with him while he's teaching you how to do barbecue.
Yeah, his book tells you everything. Just like a masterclass. I got his book, just like, I'm going to read this and learn. It's all in there. Like, he's not hanging on to some super secret thing.
Which
he's
is like, great. Yeah.
Here's how you do it.
That's great. I love that. That's my weird side hobby geek thing. And for a minute I was like, I'm going to start an underground barbecue thing. And then my wife was like, I don't know, dude. I don't know if I want people coming to the back gate on Saturday afternoons to pick up barbecue. Because there's a guy in LA who started doing that. Like, he started with like one of those ceramic egg smokers, and he started doing brisket. And it was like, he'd have his friends come get it. And then everybody's like, God, dude, you're really good at this. So he bought a bigger smoker. And then it was like, he just started doing on Instagram, like, Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock, I start taking orders. And when I'm full, that's it. And within like 6 months, he was getting like 10,000 requests a week for barbecue. And so he got a big ass super smoker rig at his suburban house in the valley. And then it got to the point where he couldn't even manage that. And he's going to brick and mortar now, like downtown in like the cool area where all the cool restaurants are. He's like, I think it's called Slab. And one of his things, like short ribs, one of his big, like brisket and short rib is like his big menu item. And I was like, fuck, I can do that. Like, I think I do barbecue good enough to be able to fucking pull that off. And then, the world fucking blew up and I started, doing other stuff. And now I'm a podcast guy because I ain't got nothing else to do with my fucking time. I'm going to let you go get back to your life and drink more of your beers. What kind of beer are you drinking right now? It better be something fucking regular, dude.
Holdout Brewing. Yeah, where's my fucking camera? Holdout Brewing. They opened this week. And this is a pale ale.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
The original one was
tastes like drinking a shrub, I'm sure.
Called Nice and Clean American Lager. You'd like this one.
I would probably like that. I'm an American lager dude.
I kept referring to Lauren. She designed all the holdout stuff. But
That's awesome. I don't mean to talk shit on these people's beer. I'm sure it's quite
These are
good.
basic beers. I think you would definitely drink the lager. I think you would probably, I don't know, this one might be too hoppy for you and your Budweiser ass.
Yeah. I'm a Budweiser guy, and I get shit for it a lot. And if you don't like Budweiser, or you decide you want to give me shit for it, right up front, say whatever you want. I do not care. I don't care. You're not going to convince me to do anything but what I do.
I like all beer.
Yeah, I wish I did, but I just don't. I like cheap American beer. The cheaper and more American the beer is, the better it is for me. So I'm gonna let you go. Get back to your life, and dude, it was amazing having you on, and it's always a good time talking to you. You're a very special person to me in my life, and just to be able to spend some time with you has been totally awesome, and I appreciate you taking the time to do it.
Thanks, buddy. I was describing you in the same manner earlier this morning when my girlfriend was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Gonna go talk to my buddy Mike. We've been friends for 20 years."
Yeah, it's been fun, man. I appreciate it, and I'd like to have you on again sometime if you're willing to come back.
Yeah, of course. We'll figure out what else we're gonna ramble about.
Yeah, right. Well, after we're done with this, we're gonna record a small episode rambling about a movie, which I will post at a different time, and I appreciate you doing that with me too.
Yeah, of course.
All right, Geoff. I'll talk to you soon, bud.
See you, buddy.